The Yuntai homeworld of Harmony's Garden was the most beautiful planet Captain Dong-wook had ever seen. It was covered with vast forests of crystal trees that sang in the wind. The oceans were silver instead of blue, and the cities looked like they had grown naturally from the ground instead of being built. But as the new soul approached the planet, they found something that wasn't beautiful at all. A massive Galactic Council fleet was waiting in orbit. There were over 200 ships arranged in a perfect military formation around the planet. "My God," whispered Navigator Oh Sung-hwan. "That's the largest fleet I've ever seen." "Lieutenant," Minho studied the sensor readings. "I'm detecting ships from 17 different species. The Council has called in everyone." Dr. Yoon looked worried. "Captain, they're not here to welcome us home." The main communication screen activated, showing the image of Admiral Zephyr. He was a crystalline being with 6 arms and eyes that glowed like stars. His voice was cold and formal. "Captain Dong-wook, you are ordered to surrender your vessel, immediately. You and your crew will be taken into custody for crimes against galactic peace." Dong-wook looked around his bridge. His crew had been through 6 weeks of combat and rescue operations. They were tired, but they were not defeated. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of Yuntai children playing in the corridors. "Admiral Zephyr," Dong-wook replied, "we are escorting survivors home after a rescue operation. We have committed no crimes." "You have destroyed 17 star systems belonging to a recognized galactic government," the Admiral said. "You have interfered with legal commercial activities. You have violated first contact protocols and declared war on the Galactic Council's authority." "We responded to a distress call from civilians being tortured by pirates," Dong-wook said, simply. "If the Galactic Council considers that a crime, then perhaps the Council needs to reconsider its priorities." The communication channel went silent for a moment. When Admiral Zephyr spoke again, his voice was harder. "Captain, you have 1 hour to surrender. If you refuse, we will take your ship by force." The screen went dark. The bridge crew looked at their captain, waiting for orders. "Well," said Commander Kim So-young, "I guess we're going to fight the entire galaxy." "No," Dong-wook said quietly. "We're going to do something much more dangerous than that." "What's that, sir?" "We're going to tell the truth." What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the Stand at Harmony's Garden. For 47 hours, one human colony ship faced down the largest military fleet in galactic history. But this wasn't a battle fought with weapons. It was a battle fought with words, witnesses, and the simple power of doing what was right. The first species to arrive were the Veltar, insectoid warriors who respected strength above all else. Their ships dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of the system and took position between the human ship and the Council fleet. "This is Hive Commander Zixtar," came the clicking, buzzing voice over the communication channels. "We have come to observe. The Veltar wish to see how this matter resolves." Admiral Zephyr was confused. "Hive Commander, this is not your concern. Please withdraw your ships." "Negative. These humans destroyed the Korth fleet that had been raiding our border worlds for 50 years. We wish to understand how they accomplished in 6 weeks what the Council failed to do in 50 years. More ships began arriving. The Morgani traders came because they admired efficiency. The Tikol philosophers came because they were curious about human ethics. The Zephyrian telepaths came because they wanted to read human minds and understand their motivations. Within 24 hours, ships from dozens of species surrounded Harmony's Garden. They hadn't come to fight. They had come to watch. They wanted to see what would happen when an immovable object met an unstoppable force. The real turning point came when young Morning Dew on Petals asked Dr. Yoon if she could speak to the big ships outside. "Why do you want to talk to them, sweetie?" Dr. Yoon asked. "Because they seem confused," the young Yuntai replied. "They think the humans did something wrong. But the humans saved us. Someone should explain that to them." Dr. Yoon looked at Captain Dong-wook, who nodded. "Put her on the main communication channel." The little alien appeared on screens throughout both fleets. She looked tiny and fragile, with flowers growing from her head and eyes that still showed the trauma of her recent experiences. "Hello," she said in her musical voice. My name is Morning Dew on Petals. I want to tell you about the humans. Admiral Zephyr tried to interrupt. This is highly irregular. Let the child speak, came a deep voice from one of the Veltar ships. We wish to hear her words. Morning Dew on Petals continued. The bad lizard people hurt my family. They hurt my friends. They made us cry and they laughed when we cried. We called for help, but nobody came. Her voice was soft, but it carried across space to every ship in both fleets. Then the humans heard us. They were going somewhere else, but they stopped to help us. They didn't know us. We had never met them before, but they came anyway. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was stronger. Uncle Crystal Light, she said, looking directly at Admiral Zephyr. These humans risked everything for people they never met. They fought scary monsters to save children. Isn't that what good people are supposed to do? The communication channels were completely silent. Across the fleets, beings from dozens of species listened to a child explain the difference between law and justice. The humans told us they would take us home, Morning Dew continued. They promised we would be safe. They kept their promise. Now you want to punish them for keeping their promise to children. She tilted her head, the way children do when they're confused by adult behavior. Is that what the Galactic Council does? Punish people for saving children? Admiral Zephyr, a veteran of 3 centuries of diplomacy and warfare, found himself speechless. Around him, his own crew was looking uncomfortable. Some of them had children of their own. The silence stretched for long minutes. Then another voice spoke on the communication channel. It belonged to Captain Mordan of the Veltar battlecruiser Razor's Edge. Admiral Zephyr, the insectoid warrior said, the Veltar have a saying, honor is measured not by the size of your enemy, but by the worth of what you protect. These humans protected children. That is honorable. The law is clear, Admiral. Zephyr replied, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Whose law? Asked Dr. Yoon, joining the conversation. Admiral, I've spent the last 6 weeks studying Galactic Council regulations. Do you know what I found? What? I found treaties that allow slavers to operate legally. I found laws that define torture as cultural practice. I found regulations that make it illegal to interfere with recognized criminal organizations. She looked directly into the camera, and her eyes were filled with the anger of someone who had spent weeks treating tortured children. Admiral, if those are your laws, then your laws are wrong. And if your government enforces those laws, then your government is wrong. The statement sent shockwaves through both fleets. No one had ever directly challenged the moral authority of the Galactic Council before. But Dr. Yoon wasn't finished. Let me tell you about human law, Admiral. On Earth, we have a principle called universal human rights. It says that some things are right or wrong regardless of local customs or treaties. And what gives you the right to impose your principles on the galaxy? Admiral Zephyr demanded. The same thing that gave us the right to respond to a distress call, Captain Dong-wook said, joining the conversation. Common decency. The debate continued for hours. Ships from dozens of species listened as humans explained their philosophy to the galaxy. They talked about the responsibility to protect the innocent. They discussed the difference between law and justice. They shared stories of Earth's long struggle to become civilized without becoming weak. As the hours passed, something unprecedented began to happen. Ships in the Council fleet began changing sides. It started with the Zephyrian telepaths, who had been reading human minds and found no trace of aggression or conquest. The humans genuinely believed they had done the right thing. Then the Morgani traders switched sides. They had calculated the economic benefits of eliminating the Korth pirates and found that human actions had actually improved galactic commerce. The Tikol philosophers joined them after analyzing human ethical frameworks and finding them superior to current council policies. One by one, ships broke away from Admiral Zephyr's fleet and took positions near the new Sol. By the end of the second day, more than half of the council fleet had effectively switched sides. Admiral Zephyr found himself commanding a rebellion of conscience that he had never intended to start. The final moment came when Admiral Zephyr received a private communication from his own homeworld, The message was from his government's Ethics Council. "Admiral," came the voice of High Counselor Nexrin, "we have reviewed the human actions and the child's testimony. The Council of Wisdom has reached a decision." "What decision?" "The humans acted correctly. Their principles are sound. Our laws are flawed." Admiral Zephyr stared at the communication screen. "Are you ordering me to withdraw?" "We are ordering you to learn. The humans have shown us something we had forgotten, that civilization is not about following rules. It is about protecting the innocent, even when it is inconvenient." The new soul approached the battle zone like a ghost ship. Captain Dongwook had ordered all external lights turned off and all unnecessary systems shut down. From the outside, the ship looked like a piece of floating space junk. "Contact on. Sensors," reported Navigator Oh Seung-hwan. "I count 23 Korth vessels surrounding one large alien ship. The alien ship is badly damaged." Dongwook studied the tactical display. The Korth ships were arranged in a loose circle around the Yuntai vessel. They were taking their time like cats playing with a wounded mouse. "What's our weapon status?" he asked Commander Kim. "All mining lasers are ready and targeted. The missile tubes are loaded with converted mining charges. Engineering teams are standing by for damage control. Boarding parties?" Security Chief Choi checked his equipment list. 42 volunteers ready for boarding action. They're armed with construction tools, welding equipment, and whatever weapons we could improvise. Most importantly, they're angry. "Doctor?" Yoon looked up from her scanner readings. "Captain, I'm detecting life signs on the Yuntai ship. Many are very weak, but they're still alive. However, I'm also detecting that the Korth are moving groups of Yuntai prisoners between ships." Dongwook's jaw tightened. The Korth were still playing with their victims. "How long until we're in weapon range?" 2 minutes, replied Navigator O. "All hands, this is the captain," Dongwook announced over the ship's communication system. "We are about to engage hostile alien forces who have been torturing innocent civilians. Remember why we're here. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember that we are human and humans protect children." The bridge crew could hear responses from all over the ship. Thousands of voices calling back, "Yes, sir," and "Ready, Captain," and "Let's go save them." 1 minute to weapon range, O reported. Dongwook watched the display as they drifted closer. The Korth still hadn't noticed them. They were too busy enjoying their cruelty. 30 seconds. All weapons. Target the largest Korth ships first. We want to shock them and make them panic. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire! The new soul erupted with light and energy. The converted mining lasers designed to cut through solid rock sliced through Korth shields like they were made of paper. The improvised missiles, packed with mining explosives, struck Korth hulls with devastating force. In 17 minutes, 8 Korth vessels were either destroyed or drifting helplessly in space. The remaining Korth ships scrambled to form a defensive line, finally realizing they were under attack. The largest Korth ship, a massive battlecruiser painted with blood-red markings, turned toward the new soul. Communications Officer Minho picked up an incoming transmission. "Unknown vessel," came a rough, hissing voice through the translation system. "This is Warlord Skrax, the Bloody of the Korth Syndicate. You have interfered with our hunt. Identify yourself before we destroy." Captain Dongwook looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting to see how humans would introduce themselves to the galaxy's worst predators. "This is Captain Lee Dongwook of the human vessel New Soul," he replied, his voice calm and cold. "You have 60 seconds to release all Yuntai prisoners and surrender your ships, or we will demonstrate why humans are classified as a Class 12 Deathworld species." The alien laughter that came through the speakers was like the sound of breaking glass mixed with animal growls. "Humans. Never heard of your species. We are Korth. We have raided and destroyed civilizations across 1,000 star systems. What can one colony ship do against the might of our fleet?" Dongwook's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew colder. "Warlord Skrax, congratulations on your previous victories. You have just found your last one." The communication channel went silent for a moment. Then Skrax's voice came back, filled with rage. "You dare threaten the Korth Syndicate? We will torture your crew for days before we let them die. You're welcome to try, Dongwook replied. But I should warn you about something. My people have spent their entire evolutionary history fighting things that were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than them. And do you know what happened to all those bigger, stronger, more dangerous things? Another pause. What happened to them? They're extinct. The Korth fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma bolts and energy beams filled space between the ships. The New Soul's shields, originally designed to protect against asteroid collisions, held against the military-grade weapons. Return fire, Dongwook ordered. The human ship's weapons struck back with precision and power. Commander Kim had done her work well. The converted mining equipment was proving surprisingly effective against military vessels. Sir, called Security Chief Choi from his battle station, requesting permission to launch boarding parties. Permission granted. Show them how Deathworlders fight. The New Soul launched dozens of small pods toward the Korth ships. Each pod carried 3 or 4 humans armed with improvised weapons and centuries of human warfare experience. What happened next would become known throughout the galaxy as the boarding. The Korth, who had built their reputation on being savage fighters, encountered human beings in close combat for the first time. Former farmer Bae Hyun-soo had volunteered for the boarding parties. He carried a modified plasma cutter and wore armor made from construction materials. When his pod breached the hull of a Korth raider, he found himself facing 3 alien warriors in a narrow corridor. The Korth were 2 meters tall with thick scales and claws like knives. They had been fighting for their entire lives, but they had never fought anyone from Earth. Bae used the zero gravity to his advantage, pushing off walls and spinning in ways that confused his enemies. His plasma cutter, designed for precision work on mining operations, proved devastatingly effective in close quarters. Within minutes, the corridor belonged to the humans. On another Korth ship, retired teacher Lim Yoon-ji found herself trapped in an engine room with hostile aliens. She had taught physics for 30 years before joining the colony mission. Now, she put her education to practical use. She used her understanding of pressure systems and explosive decompression to turn the ship's own systems into weapons. A few careful cuts with her welding torch and entire sections of the Korth ship were venting atmosphere into space. The Korth had never encountered enemies who could turn their own ships against them. They began sending distress calls to their other vessels. On the bridge of the New Soul, Lieutenant Minho intercepted the Korth communications. Captain, they're panic. I'm hearing reports of impossible human fighting techniques and Deathworld combat abilities. Are our people taking casualties? Dongwook asked. Minor injuries only. The humans are using teamwork and tactics that the Korth don't understand. The aliens fight as individuals, but our people fight as coordinated units. Dr. Yoon looked up from her scanner readings. Captain, I'm detecting something interesting. The Korth body temperature is dropping in areas where our people are fighting. They're literally getting cold feet. Explain. The Korth are reptilian. When they get stressed or scared, their body temperature drops and their reaction time slows down. Our people are not just defeating them physically. They're defeating them psychologically. The battle continued for 2 hours. One by one, Korth ships were captured, disabled, or destroyed. The human boarding parties worked through each vessel, like a wave of controlled destruction. But the humans weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to save lives. Every time they captured a section of a Korth ship, they immediately searched for Yuntai prisoners. Food Services Director Lim Yoon-ji found a group of 12 young Yuntai locked in a cargo hold on Skrax's flagship. The alien children were terrified and injured but alive. She used the gentle voice she had once used with her own students. It's okay, she told them in their own language, using the translation program Dr. Yoon had prepared. We're here to help. You're safe now. The young aliens looked at her with confusion. One of them, a small creature with flowers for hair, spoke in a whisper. Are you here to hurt us more? No, Lim replied firmly. We're humans. We heard your distress call. We came to take you home. The little alien's eyes grew wide. But why? We never met humans before. Why would you help strangers? Lim smiled and gently touched the young alien's hand. Because that's what humans do. When children are in trouble, we come running. By the end of the battle, 15 Korth vessels had been captured, disabled, or destroyed. The remaining 8 ships tried to flee, but the new Sol's targeting systems, enhanced with human tactical programming, tracked them down one by one. Warlord Skrax's flagship was the last to surrender. When Security Chief Choi finally cornered the alien commander in his throne room, Skrax was no longer laughing. "What are you?" Skrax demanded. "You fight like demons, but you care for prey animals like they were your own offspring. What kind of predators are you?" Choi looked at the defeated warlord and considered the question seriously. "We're not predators," he said finally. "We're something much more dangerous than that." "What?" "We're humans who heard children crying. The battle was over. Not a single human had been killed, though several were injured and proud of their wounds. The Korth Syndicate's raiding fleet had been completely destroyed or captured. But for Captain Dong-wook and his crew, the real work was... News traveled fast through the new Sol. Within 2 hours, every person on the ship knew about the alien distress call. The colonists gathered in small groups in the corridors and common areas. They talked in quiet voices, but their eyes were hard. Captain Dong-wook called his department heads to the main conference room. The room was simple and clean, with a large table and chairs for 20 people. When everyone arrived, Dong-wook stood at the head of the table and looked at each face. "You all know why we're here," he began. "I've changed our mission without asking for a vote. Some of you might think that's wrong." Commander Kim So-young, the chief engineer, spoke first. "Captain, I've been thinking about what you said, about children being hurt. I have 2 daughters back on Earth. If someone was hurting them, I'd want somebody to help, even if it was dangerous." She looked around the table at the other department heads. "I think we should help these aliens, but I also think we need to be smart about it. The new Sol isn't a warship. We need to make it into one." Dr. Yoon Ji-hai opened a datapad and showed the others what she had learned. "I've been studying the information we have about both species. The Yuntai are herbivores. That means they only eat plants. They've never developed weapons because they don't hunt animals. Their whole culture is based on avoiding violence." She touched her pad and showed them pictures of the Korth. They looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth and claws. The Korth are the opposite. They're predators. They've built their entire society around taking things from others. They see peaceful species as easy prey. Security Chief Choi Woo-jin leaned forward. "What kind of weapons do they have?" "Military-grade plasma cannons, energy shields, and armor designed for ship-to-ship combat. They also use torture devices for their entertainment," Dr. Yoon replied. "And what do we have?" asked Food Services Director Lim Yoonji. She was a small woman, but Dong-wook knew she had served in the Australian wasteland campaigns. She could fight if needed. Commander Kim smiled. "We have mining equipment, construction tools, and manufacturing systems. We also have something else." "What's that?" asked Communications Officer Min-ho. "We have 12,000 humans who grew up on Earth," Kim said. "Do you know what that means?" The room was quiet for a moment. Then Chief Choi started laughing. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who remembered things that most civilized species would find terrible. "It means," Choi said, "that we grew up on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and predators that were bigger and stronger than us. We didn't survive because we were tough. We survived because we were smart, mean, and stubborn." Dr. Yoon nodded. "Exactly. Humans are what xenobiologists call a deathworld species. We evolved on a planet so dangerous that it created the most adaptable and resourceful species in the known galaxy. More importantly," Commander Kim added, "we're a deathworld species that decided to become civilized. We know how to be peaceful because we choose to be peaceful. But when someone threatens children..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Everyone in the room understood. Captain Dong-wook looked around the table. "I need to know if you're all with me on this. We're 12 hours away from the alien ship. Once we commit to this course of action, there's no going back. The Galactic Council might not approve of what we're about to do." Medical Officer Park Hyun-soo, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Captain, I took an oath to help all living beings, not just humans. These Yuntai are living beings who need help. I'm with you." One by one, each department head agreed. Within an hour, the new soul had become something it was never designed to be, a warship crewed by angry humans. Commander Kim went to work immediately. In the engineering sections, she gathered her best people and began converting their equipment. The mining plasma cutters were powerful tools designed to slice through asteroids. With some modifications, they could slice through enemy ships just as easily. "Park Sung-min," she called to one of her engineers, "take these plasma cutters and mount them on the external hull. Make sure they can rotate in all directions." "Yes, ma'am. Should I reinforce the power systems?" "Reinforce everything. We're going to push this ship harder than it's ever been pushed before." In another part of the ship, Kim pulled the mining charges out of storage. These were small explosives used to break up large asteroids. She looked at them with the eyes of someone who had once built weapons for Earth's military. "Lee Hyejin," she called to another engineer. "Can you turn these mining charges into missiles?" Lee looked at the charges and smiled. "Give me 4 hours and some spare parts. I'll give you missiles that can punch through military armor." While the engineers worked, Security Chief Choi began organizing the colonists. He divided them into groups based on their backgrounds and skills. The former military personnel became his boarding teams. These were men and women who had fought in Earth's various conflicts. They knew how to fight in close quarters and how to work as a team. The farmers and construction workers became his support crews. They might not have military training, but they were strong and tough. They knew how to work with dangerous tools and how to stay calm under pressure. Even the teachers and medical personnel had roles to play. Dr. Yoon trained them to treat wounded aliens. Food Services Director Lim taught them basic tactics she had learned in the Wasteland Wars. "Remember," Choi told his teams, "we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for those alien children who are crying for help. That makes us more dangerous than any weapon." In the ship's computer center, the artificial intelligence began analyzing human military history. The AI had been programmed with databases from Earth's libraries. It contained information about every human conflict, every battle tactic, and every weapon design. "Interesting," the AI said to itself as it processed the data. "Humans have been fighting wars for their entire recorded history. They have developed more ways to kill each other than any other known species. Yet they have also developed more ways to save each other." The AI began calculating optimal attack strategies. It cross-referenced Korth ship designs with human boarding tactics. It analyzed plasma weapon effectiveness against different armor types. It even studied human psychological warfare techniques. Dr. Yoon worked in her laboratory, studying the Korth physiology data from the Galactic Council databases. "Computer, show me Korth weaknesses." "Korth are cold-blooded reptilians," the ship's AI replied. "They have thick scales that resist energy weapons, but their joints are vulnerable. They have excellent night vision but poor hearing. Their reaction speed is slower than humans in cold environments." Dr. Yoon made notes on her datapad. "What about their psychology?" "Korth society is based on dominance hierarchies. They respect strength and despise weakness. They have never encountered a species that fights back effectively after appearing weak initially." "Perfect," Dr. Yoon said. "They think herbivores are weak because herbivores don't fight. They've never met omnivores who choose to eat plants but remember how to hunt." As the hours passed, the new soul transformed. The exterior hull sprouted weapon mounts and sensor arrays. The interior corridors were reinforced with steel plates from the construction supplies. The cargo bays were converted into staging areas for boarding parties. The most dramatic change was in the colonists themselves. These people had come to space to escape war and violence. They wanted to build schools and farms, not fight battles. But as they prepared to face the Korth, something ancient awakened in them. They remembered that their ancestors had hunted mammoths with spears. They remembered that their grandparents had fought through 2 world wars. They remembered that humans had never been the biggest or strongest species on Earth, but they had become the most successful because they never gave up and never forgot their friends. Captain Dongwook walked through the ship and watched his people prepare. In the workshops, elderly men who had been farmers were building armor from construction materials. In the training areas, Mothers were practicing combat moves they hadn't used in decades. In the medical bays, doctors were preparing to save lives while their friends took lives. "Captain," Lieutenant Minho called from the bridge. "We're 6 hours out from the alien distress signal. Should I try to contact the Yuntai ship?" Dong-wook thought about it. "No. Let's surprise everyone. The Korth think they're hunting helpless prey. The Yuntai think no one is coming to save them. Let's prove them both wrong." He looked at the main screen, which showed the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, alien children were crying while monsters hurt them for fun. But help was coming. Help in the form of 12,000 humans who had just remembered that their species had not conquered Earth by being nice. They had conquered it by being the most dangerous thing in the galaxy when their families were threatened. The new soul continued through space, no longer a colony ship carrying hopeful families. Now it was something that the galaxy had never seen before, a human warship crewed by ordinary people who had extraordinary reasons to fight. And in the darkness ahead, the Korth Syndicate was about to learn why humans were the only species that had ever looked at the most dangerous planet in the galaxy and decided to call it home. The journey to the Yuntai homeworld should have taken 6 peaceful days. Instead, it became 6 weeks of the most methodical military campaign the galaxy had ever witnessed. The humans didn't just escort the gentle current home. They systematically dismantled the entire Korth Syndicate along the way. Captain Dong-wook studied the star charts in his ready room. The route to the Yuntai homeworld passed through 17 star systems controlled by the Korth. Each system contained Korth military bases, slave camps, or raiding outposts. "We can go around," suggested Navigator Oh Seung-hwan. "It will add 3 months to our journey, but we can avoid Korth space entirely." Dong-wook looked at the medical reports from Dr. Yoon. Many of the rescued Yuntai were still in critical condition. They needed advanced medical facilities that only existed on their homeworld. 3 extra months might mean death for dozens of the survivors. "No," Dong-wook said. "We go through. But we don't sneak past. We clean house as we go." The first system they entered was called Bloody Harvest by the Korth. It was a mining world where enslaved aliens worked in terrible conditions to extract rare metals for Korth weapons. The system was defended by an orbital defense platform with enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Commander Kim So-young studied the defense platform specifications. "Captain, that station has military-grade shields and plasma cannon arrays. It was designed to stop warships, not colony vessels." "Good thing we're not planning to fight it like a warship," Dong-wook replied. "Chief Engineer, what do you know about mining operations?" Kim smiled. She had spent 15 years managing asteroid mining operations before joining the colony mission. "I know that mining equipment is designed to break apart the biggest, toughest rocks in space." "And what's that orbital platform made of?" "Metal and rock, sir." "Exactly." The new soul approached Bloody Harvest looking like a harmless trading vessel. The Korth defense platform didn't even raise its shields. Why would miners be a threat to a military installation? They learned the answer when Commander Kim activated the ship's mining array. Instead of targeting asteroids, the humans aimed their equipment at the defense platform's support structures. The plasma cutters, designed to slice through solid metal, found the station's weak points with surgical precision. The mining charges, reprogrammed to detonate in sequence, created a chain reaction that collapsed the platform's main power grid. In 4 hours, the orbital defense system that had protected Korth operations for 20 years was nothing but floating debris. The enslaved workers on the planet below watched in amazement as human landing shuttles descended from the sky. The rescue teams were led by former soldiers who had experienced liberating prison camps during Earth's wars. Security Chief Choi found himself face-to-face with a Korth overseer named Grax the Merciless. The alien was 2.5 meters tall with claws like knives and scales like armor. "You cannot free these slaves," Grax snarled. "They are legal property under Galactic Council law. I will report you to the authorities." Choi looked at the alien children working in the mines, their small hands bleeding from handling sharp ore. "You know what I think about your laws?" he said calmly. "What?" Choi's response was to demonstrate why humans had become the dominant species on a world full of predators. The fight lasted exactly 37 seconds. When it was over, Grax the Merciless was unconscious, and the slave camps were open. Tati. Second system was called Iron Fang Station. It was a massive space fortress that served as the Korth military headquarters. The station was supposedly impregnable, with overlapping shield generators and hundreds of automated defense turrets. "How do we assault a fortress?" asked Lieutenant Minho. "We don't," replied Chief Choi. "We infiltrate it." The humans had learned something important about Korth psychology during their first battle. The aliens thought like predators. They focused on big threats and ignored small ones. They never considered that their prey might be smart enough to use stealth and cunning. The assault on Iron Fang Station became a textbook example of human tactical thinking. Instead of attacking the heavily defended main entrances, the humans used maintenance tunnels, waste disposal systems, and air conditioning ducts. Food Services Director Lim Yoonji led a team through the station's kitchen facilities. The Korth had never considered that their food preparation areas might be used as invasion routes. "Remember," she told her team, "we're not just soldiers today, we're exterminators, and the Korth are the pests." Dr. Yoon led another team through the medical facilities. She had studied the station's blueprints and found that the medical bay connected to the command center through an emergency corridor. "It's poetic justice," she explained to her team. "They use their medical facilities to torture prisoners. Today, we use those same facilities to heal the galaxy." The Korth defenders never knew what hit them. One moment their fortress was secure. The next moment, humans were appearing in every corridor, every room, every hiding place. The aliens had never faced an enemy that could flow through their defenses like liquid death. The battle for Iron Fang Station lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the humans had captured the most powerful Korth military base without destroying it. They had also rescued 2,947 prisoners from dozens of different species. But the victory that most impressed the galaxy happened at a world called Broken Chains. This planet held 400,000 enslaved beings from across the galaxy. The Korth used it as their primary slave market, where captured civilians were sold to the highest bidders. The planet was too big to assault directly. The slaves were too scattered to rescue individually. And the Korth had threatened to kill all the prisoners if anyone tried to interfere. Dr. Yoon proposed a solution that was brilliant in its simplicity. "We don't attack the planet," she said. "We make it impossible for the Korth to function there." She had been studying Korth biology during the journey. The aliens were reptilian, which meant they were sensitive to certain environmental factors. Working in her laboratory, she designed a biological agent that was completely harmless to every known species except the Korth. "It's not a weapon," she explained to Captain Dongwook. "It's more like a very severe allergy medication. The Korth will experience massive histamine reactions, but they won't die." "What kind of reactions?" "Sneezing, wheezing, watery eyes, skin irritation, and general misery. They'll be completely incapacitated, but perfectly safe." The new Sol released Dr. Yoon's biological agent into Broken Chain's atmosphere using the same systems they had used for seeding planets with Earth crops. Within 6 hours, every Korth on the planet was sneezing, coughing, and unable to function. The enslaved prisoners, led by the humans, simply walked out of their chains. There was no great battle, no dramatic assault. The Korth guards were too busy sneezing to stop anyone. Word of the Deathworld Express spread through Galactic Council space faster than the new Sol could travel. Entire Korth fleets began surrendering rather than face the humans in combat. Some Korth commanders chose ritual suicide rather than endure what they called human questioning techniques. The irony was that human questioning techniques consisted mostly of showing Korth prisoners Earth documentaries about predators and prey relationships. After watching videos of lions, sharks, and eagles, the Korth began to understand that they were not the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. "It's fascinating," Dr. Yoon reported to Captain Dongwook after interviewing captured Korth officers. "They built their entire culture around being apex predators. When they realized that humans evolved alongside creatures that were bigger and more dangerous than them, their worldview collapses." "What do you mean?" "Imagine you spent your whole life believing you were the toughest person in the galaxy. Then you meet someone who grew up on a planet full of grizzly bears, poisonous snakes, and great white sharks. Someone who considers all of those things normal parts of childhood. By the time the new soul reached the 15th system, Korth resistance had completely collapsed. The remaining raider fleets either fled to distant parts of the galaxy or surrendered to local authorities. The humans had accomplished something that the Galactic Council had considered impossible. They had eliminated a major criminal organization in 6 weeks without using weapons of mass destruction or committing any war crimes. How did we do it? Asked Navigator O during one of their daily briefings. Commander Kim thought about the question. We did it because we understood something the Galactic Council never learned. What's that? Evil people are usually cowards. They prey on the weak because they're afraid of anything that fights back. When they finally met someone who hit back harder than they hit, they folded like paper. Chief Choi nodded. Plus, we had something the Korth never expected. What? We were fighting for someone else's children. That makes humans approximately 10 times more dangerous than usual. As they prepared to enter the final system before Yuntai space, Captain Dong-wook received an unexpected message. It came from the Galactic Council headquarters on the planet Nexus Prime. Captain Dong-wook, came the formal voice of Council Admiral Zephyr. You and your crew are hereby ordered to stop your military activities and report to Council space for judgment. You have violated 17 interstellar treaties and destroyed a legally recognized government. Dong-wook looked at the communication screen now. The Yuntai ship called Gentle Current was worse than Captain Dong-wook had expected. As the new soul docked with the alien vessel, the humans could see massive holes in the hull where Korth weapons had torn through the metal. Emergency lights flickered weakly throughout the corridors and the air systems were barely working. Medical teams, prepare for mass casualties, Dr. Yoon Ji-hai announced over the communication system. From what I can detect on sensors, many of the aliens are in critical condition. Security Chief Choi led the first team aboard the Gentle Current. The corridors were wider than human ships, designed for beings who valued space and beauty over efficiency. But now those beautiful halls were stained with damage and fear. The first Yuntai they encountered was huddled in a corner near the docking port. It was an adult female with pale green skin and flowers that grew naturally from her head instead of hair. She looked at the humans with eyes that were too wide with terror. Please don't hurt us more, she whispered in her musical language. The translation device made her words sound like wind chimes mixed with crying. Chief Choi knelt down slowly, making himself smaller and less threatening. He had learned this technique while serving in refugee camps during Earth's wars. We're not here to hurt you, he said gently. We heard your distress call. We came to help. The alien female stared at him with confusion. But you are predators. I can see your forward-facing eyes and your sharp teeth. Predators always hurt herbivores. Not these predators, Choi replied. We're called humans. We choose what to hunt. And we hunt people who hurt children. Dr. Yoon entered the ship with her medical teams. She immediately began scanning the injured Yuntai with portable equipment. What she found made her angry in ways she hadn't felt since medical school. The Korth hadn't just attacked the Gentle Current. They had systematically tortured the crew and passengers. The aliens showed signs of deliberate cruelty, burns from energy weapons used at low power to cause maximum pain, cuts that were designed to hurt but not kill quickly, and psychological trauma that ran deeper than physical wounds. These aren't combat injuries, Dr. Yoon told Captain Dong-wook over the communication link. These are torture wounds. The Korth were hurting them for entertainment. The worst part was what the torture had done to the Yuntai mentally. Their entire species had evolved without violence. They had no psychological defenses against deliberate cruelty. Many of them were conscious but completely unresponsive, their minds simply unable to process what had happened to them. We need to contact their medical personnel, Dr. Yoon said. I can treat their physical wounds, but their mental trauma requires someone who understands their psychology. Lieutenant Minho had been working to establish communication with the surviving Yuntai crew. After an hour of patient work, he managed to connect with their chief medical officer, an elderly alien whose name translated as Whisper of Wind Through Leaves. The Yuntai doctor appeared on the communication screen, and the humans could see that he was badly injured. His flower hair was wilted, and his green skin had turned pale, but his eyes were still alert and intelligent. "You are the ones who drove away the Korth," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Dr. Yoon replied. "We're humans. We heard your distress. Call and came to help. I'm a doctor. Can you tell me how to treat your people?" Whisper of wind through. Leaves looked at her with wonder. "You risked your lives for strangers? Why?" "Because that's what civilized beings do," Dr. Yoon said simply. "Now please help me save your people." The two doctors worked together for the next 6 hours. Dr. Yoon learned that Yuntai physiology was similar enough to human biology that most of her medical techniques would work, but their psychology was completely different. "My people have never known violence," Whisper explained as they worked to treat a group of injured children. "We do not understand cruelty or hatred. When the Korth began hurting us, many of my people's minds simply broke. They cannot accept that such evil exists." Dr. Yoon looked at the young Yuntai they were treating. The child, whose name was Morning Dew on Petals, was physically healing well. But she hadn't spoken since the rescue began. She just stared at the walls with empty eyes. "How do we help them heal mentally?" Dr. Yoon asked. "I do not know," Whisper admitted. "We have no experience with this kind of trauma. Your species must be very strong to function after seeing violence." Dr. Yoon thought about that. "We're not strong because we like violence. We're strong because we've learned to survive it and still choose to be good." While the medical teams worked, Navigator Oh Sung-hwan was helping Yuntai engineer Flow of Gentle Rivers repair their ship's systems. The human discovered that Yuntai technology was advanced in some ways, but completely defenseless in others. "Your engines are incredible," Oh told the alien engineer. "They're twice as efficient as ours and produce no pollution. But why don't you have any weapons?" Flow of Gentle Rivers looked confused by the question. "Why would we need weapons? We study plants and small animals. We share what we learn with other peaceful species. What would we attack?" Oh thought about how to explain human history without terrifying the gentle alien. "On our world, we had many different groups of people. Sometimes they fought each other for resources or territory. We had to learn to defend ourselves." "But that sounds terrible," Flo said. "How do you live with such fear?" "We learned that the best defense is to be strong enough to protect the weak," Oh replied. "That's why we came when we heard your distress call." The most difficult part of the rescue was dealing with the Yuntai children. There were 127 young aliens on the ship, ranging from babies to teenagers. Many of them had been separated from their parents during the Korth attack. They were scared, hurt, and confused. Food Services Director Lim Yoon-ji took charge of the children's care. She had raised 3 kids of her own and had worked with refugee children during the Australian campaigns. She knew that frightened children needed safety, food, and gentle voices more than anything else. But the Yuntai children were different from human children. They had never seen violence before. They didn't understand why anyone would want to hurt them. Their innocence made them both beautiful and heartbreaking. A young Yuntai named Soft Song of Starlight clung to Lim's arm and asked in a tiny voice, "Why did the bad lizards hurt my mama?" Lim didn't know how to explain evil to someone who had never seen it before. "Sometimes there are bad people in the galaxy," she said carefully, "but there are also good people who stop the bad people. That's why we're here." "Are you good people?" the child asked. "We try to be," Lim replied. "We heard you crying and we came as fast as we could." The child was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made Lim's heart break. "I thought nobody would come. I thought all the big people in the galaxy were like the bad lizards." "No, sweetheart," Lim said, hugging the young alien gently. "Most people are good, and the good people always come when children call for help." As the rescue operation continued, Captain Dong-wook faced a difficult decision. The gentle current was badly damaged and would need months of repair work to be space-worthy again. The Yuntai were still in shock from their ordeal, and the captured Korth prisoners were demanding to be released. "Captain," Security Chief Choi reported, "the Korth prisoners are claiming we have no authority to hold them. They say they were conducting legal salvage operations. Legal salvage? Dong-wook's voice was dangerous. Is that what they call torturing children? Apparently, under Korth law, any ship that cannot defend itself is considered abandoned property. They claim they have the right to do whatever they want with the crew. Dr. Yoon joined the conversation. Captain, I've been studying Galactic Council law while treating patients. The Korth may technically be correct. Their government has signed treaties that allow them to raid ships in unprotected space. Dong-wook stared at her. Are you telling me that torturing children is legal in this galaxy? I'm telling you that the Galactic Council apparently thinks it's more important to respect different cultural practices than to protect innocent lives. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Captain Dong-wook spoke in a voice that was calm, but filled with steel. Communications Officer Minho, send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them that humans have arrived in the galaxy, and we have some opinions about their laws. What should the message say, sir? Tell them that any law that allows the torture of children is not a law we recognize. Tell them that humans consider the protection of innocent life to be a universal principle that supersedes all local customs and treaties. Sir, that might be considered a declaration of war against the entire Galactic Council. Dong-wook looked at the main screen, which showed the damaged Yuntai ship and the rescued families floating in the rescue pods. Officer Minho, if the Galactic Council thinks that protecting children is an act of war, then they're about to learn something important about human beings. What's that, sir? We're very good at war. But even as he spoke those words, Dong-wook was thinking about the Yuntai children who were finally sleeping safely in the New Seoul's medical bays. They were no longer crying. They were no longer afraid. They were dreaming peaceful dreams because humans had come when they called for help. That was worth any war the galaxy could bring. The New Seoul and the gentle current. The space station called Harmony's Edge floated quietly in the dark between stars. Inside the communication room, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms sat at his desk. His name was Tliss, and he worked for the Galactic Council. His job was to listen for messages from across the galaxy. Today felt like any other day. Tliss checked the usual channels for trade reports and travel updates. Nothing seemed important or dangerous. Then his equipment started making noise. A new signal was coming through one of the emergency channels. Tliss touched his control panel with 2 of his hands. The signal was rough and strong. It came from a part of space that nobody had explored before. The location was marked as Sol 3 on his star charts. He had never heard of any civilized species living there. The message played through his speakers. Even though the language was strange, Tliss could understand the basic meaning. Someone was asking for help. They were in serious trouble. Meanwhile, far away in another part of space, a large human ship moved through the darkness. The ship was called New Seoul, and it carried 12,000 people who were looking for a new home among the stars. The B-Might ship was not built for fighting. It was built for families who wanted to start fresh lives on distant worlds. Captain Lee Dong-wook stood on the bridge of his ship. He was a serious man with kind eyes who cared deeply about his people. He had served in Earth's military for many years before becoming a colony ship captain. His uniform was simple and clean, and he always kept his black hair neat and short. "Captain," called Lieutenant Park Min-ho from the communication station. "I'm getting something strange on the emergency channels." Dong-wook walked over to Min-ho's station. The young officer had been working with alien languages for several years. He was one of the best translators in the human fleet. "What kind of strange?" Dong-wook asked. "It's a distress call, sir. But it's not from any human ship. The language is completely alien. Our computers are trying to translate it now." The bridge became quiet as everyone listened. The ship's artificial intelligence worked quickly to understand the alien words. After a few minutes, the translation began playing through the speakers. The voice sounded desperate and afraid. It belonged to someone calling themselves Gentle Researcher Win-Through Flowers. The speaker explained that their ship was called the Gentle Current. It carried 847 civilians who studied plants and peaceful animals from different worlds. "Please, if anyone can hear this message, we need help. the alien voice said through the translation system. Bad people have attacked our ship. They call themselves the Korth Syndicate. They have bigger guns and stronger shields than us. We only have tools for studying rocks and soil. We cannot fight them. The message continued, and Dongwook's face grew darker with each word. The aliens called themselves the Yuntai. They had never fought a war or hurt anyone. They traveled between worlds to learn about nature and share knowledge. They had families on their ship, including many young children. The bad people are not killing us quickly, the alien voice continued. They are hurting us slowly. They think it is fun to watch us suffer. They are taking our children to different rooms. We can hear them crying. Please, someone help us. We do not know what to do. In the background of the message, Dongwook could hear other voices. Some were crying. Others were screaming. The sound of children in pain made his hands clench into fists. Lieutenant Park Min-ho looked at his captain with wide eyes. Sir, what should we do? Dongwook stared at the main screen, which showed the stars ahead of them. His colonists were expecting to reach their new home planet in 6 weeks. They had been traveling for 8 months already. Many families had young children who were getting tired of living on the ship. Captain? Asked Commander Kim So-young, the chief engineer. She was a tough woman who could fix anything on the ship. Should I continue our course to New Haven? Dongwook thought about his duty to his own people. Then he thought about the crying children in the alien message. He had a daughter himself waiting for him on New Haven. How would he feel if she was trapped somewhere while aliens hurt her for fun? I'll stop, Dongwook said quietly. The bridge crew looked at each other with surprise. Sir? Asked Min-ho. I said I'll stop. Cut the engines. Change our course to intercept that alien ship. Commander Kim stepped forward. Captain, with respect, we're not a warship. We have families aboard. Those Korth aliens sound dangerous. Dongwook turned to face his crew. His expression was hard as stone, but his eyes burned with anger. Commander Kim, do you have children? Yes, sir. 2 daughters. How would you feel if they were on that alien ship right now? Kim was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. I understand, sir. Lieutenant Min-ho, send a message to all department heads. Tell them to meet me in conference room 1 in 30 minutes. We need to discuss our new mission. What should I tell them the mission is? Min-ho asked. Dongwook looked at the communication station where the alien distress call was still playing. The crying sounds had gotten louder. More children were screaming now. Tell them we're going to save some people who need saving, he said. And tell them we're going to stop some people who need stopping. As the crew prepared for the emergency meeting, word spread quickly through the ship. The colonists were not just ordinary families looking for new homes. Many of them were refugees from Earth's terrible resource wars. Others had served in different military forces. Some had fought in the Korean Peninsula conflicts. Others had survived the Australian wasteland campaigns. These people had come to space looking for peace. They wanted to grow crops, build schools, and raise their children safely, but they had not forgotten how to fight when innocent people needed protection. Dr. Yoon-ji Hai, the ship's expert on alien biology, was in her laboratory when she heard the news. She had been studying soil samples from their destination planet. When she learned about the alien ship under attack, she immediately started researching everything she could find about the species mentioned in the distress call. Computer show me all available data on the Yuntai and the Korth Syndicate, she said. The ship's artificial intelligence displayed what little information it had. The Yuntai seemed to be a peaceful species that had never developed weapons. They were plant eaters who valued learning and kindness above everything else. The Korth were the opposite. They were meat eaters who had built their culture around violence and taking things from others. Dr. Yoon smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who understood that the galaxy was about to learn something important about humans. Security Chief Choi Woo-jin was running training exercises in the ship's gymnasium when he got the news. He was a big, strong man who had once been a sergeant in the Korean Marine Corps. He immediately stopped the exercise and gathered his security team. Change of plans, people, he announced. We might be going into combat soon. I want all security personnel to report to the armory in 1 hour. We need to check our equipment and review our boarding procedures. One of his younger officers raised her hand. "Chief, are we really going to fight aliens with just security equipment?" Choi looked at her seriously. "Officer Bay, when I was in the Marines, we had a saying, 'The weapon doesn't make the warrior. The warrior makes the weapon.' We'll use whatever we have to use." All around the New Seoul, similar conversations were happening. In the engineering sections, workers started looking at their tools with new eyes. Mining equipment could be turned into weapons. Construction materials could become armor. The ship's manufacturing systems could produce things that the original designers had never imagined. Captain Dong-wook stood alone on the bridge and watched the stars change direction as his ship turned toward the alien distress call. He knew he was taking a huge risk. His duty was to his colonists first, but he also knew something that the Galactic Council had never learned about humans. When humans heard children crying for help, duty became something else entirely. It became a promise that someone was coming, a promise that the people, causing the tears, would regret it. The New Soul accelerated toward the unknown, carrying 12,000 humans who had just remembered why their species had conquered the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. They had not done it by being the strongest or the smartest. They had done it by refusing to let monsters win.